This episode is part of the pool's Local Officials Stronger Together podcast series. It's one way we serve local officials through integrity, public service, fiscal responsibility, and operational excellence. As always, please direct specific questions about coverage to your risk management advisor.
Welcome to the Local Officials Stronger Together podcast. I'm your host, Scott Houston. Today's episode is a little different, and it's actually a little personal. After 5 years with the Risk Pool, and more than 20 years with the Texas Municipal League before that, I'm retiring from the TML family and preparing to step into a new chapter. But before I do, we thought it would be meaningful to pause and reflect, not just on my career, but on a mission that's over 100 years old. Because what makes organizations like the Pool and the League so special isn't just what they do, it's how they've progressed over the years. Over the last couple of decades, we've seen Texas city officials face incredible challenges: insane population growth, economic cycles, natural disaster, evolving legal risks, cybersecurity threats, and increasing expectations from the communities we serve. But through it all, one thing has remained constant. That's city officials showing up for each other. And that's what the Pool and TML are. That's what the League is. It's not about institutions. It's about real people working to better their communities. So today, I'm going to switch seats a bit. Instead of asking the questions, I'll be answering them. And joining me is someone you know well, our Executive Director, Jeff Thompson. After the break, Jeff and I will talk about how things have changed, what we've learned, and where we're headed next. But more than anything, we'll talk about why this work matters.
Okay, well, welcome back, Scott. I have to say, this feels more than a little strange. I'm usually the one answering the questions on this podcast, not asking them. But I think it's fitting that we flip the script today because, honestly, you spent 5 years making sure other people's stories get told, and it's time someone returned the favor. So let's start there. When you think back over your time at the League and the Pool, 25 plus years of city officials, legal briefs, podcasts, it depends on a map. What stands out the most to you?
Well, the first and most important thing is very easy. Working at the Texas Municipal League led me to meet my wife, Leslie. She at that time worked for the Health Pool, formerly known as TML Health, and I was a heavy smoker. So I met her behind the current office building while I was on a smoke break. That's numero uno. But don't worry, I haven't smoked for a long time. We've taken care of that.
Really, though, I think we want to talk about work. What stands out to me work-wise is how much the mission has stayed the same, even as everything around us has changed. At its core, what we do has always been about helping cities serve their communities. And that hasn't changed in my quarter century of service, and it hasn't changed before me, and I'm certain that it won't after. But how we do those things helps cities. That has evolved dramatically. For example, when I first started, a lot of the focus was on traditional legal guidance and advocacy at the Texas Municipal League. I mean, in 2000, we were still literally writing letters to city officials and legislators and either mailing them or even faxing them over to them. So, of course,
that seems like eons ago.
Of course, over the years, we've seen a shift towards something broader, towards more proactive support. And I think that's the basis of the partnership. I've recently started to think about TML and the Pool in a kind of a certain way. And that, in my mind, it's kind of like computer programs that are always running in the background for city officials. Our role has been, is today, and will continue to be to do what individuals simply can't do alone. And in fact, that's in the Texas Municipal League's constitution. It's also, though, to be a partner, whether it's providing coverage through the Pool or advocating at the Capitol for TML, we're always here as a partner. The bottom line is that we do what we do at the Pool, at the League, so our city officials can focus on their core mission. We're here to take care of their needs that we do so they can continue serving their cities with excellence. So it's not really just about responding to problems. I think it's more about helping cities avoid them altogether.
Well, that evolution from sort of reactive to proactive, that's a little bit of an overstatement, but that evolution feels like a defining theme. And I think it's one that you personally embodied. I mean, you didn't just talk about proactive support. You built it into your work here. The podcasts, the member relationships, the presence at TML regional meetings, with AGRIP, with NLC, that's all about getting ahead of things, not waiting for a call. How have you seen that play out in the pool specifically?
Well, the way I look at it is that the pool has become essentially a full partner for cities and other local governments in risk management. A few of the larger cities have an employee who is a risk manager to help them out, but the vast majority don't have that. And I think the way we're couching our risk services nowadays is that we're trying to position ourselves as the city's risk manager. Again, serving in the background so that they can carry out their core functions. We're not just about providing coverage. I think that's a key. We mention that all the time. We're not an insurance company. We're about helping members avoid problems. We're about helping them by providing no-cost training. The cyber preparedness stuff we do is so important. The new Excellence in Law Enforcement initiative, actually it's a couple of years old, but it's very important. The law enforcement efforts that our two consultants do to help cities out. We help them with employment policies and other things. We're investing in tools and expertise that cities just can't afford on their own. And I think that reflects a deeper philosophy shift. Sort of like what I mentioned before, from we're here to help you when something goes wrong to we're here so things go right in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, that gets to what we've talked about internally. I mean, we're not selling a product here at the pool. We're protecting a promise, and that promise exists between our members. You've worked closely with local officials for decades, and I mean that quite literally. 200 plus presentations, quiet counsel to city attorneys across the state, your faculty at Texas State's MPA program. You've seen these officials up close and in the room, and often in the middle of something quite hard. Have you seen changes in what our city officials are dealing with?
I absolutely have. I mentioned a minute ago faxing letters to people. The complexity of what cities are dealing with at home and how we're helping them has increased dramatically. I don't think there's any question about that. And I think that's true in our modern lives in general, but I think it's especially true in the area of local government. So like I mentioned, the continued population growth in Texas, it just continues to stress the system in many parts of the state. I mean, we've been adding 1,000 people a day to the Texas population for years and years, just an incredible influx of people. So city officials today are dealing with that. They're navigating much more complex legal issues, financial and social challenges that are much more visible and more immediate than before. And of course, social media. I mean, that's one of the biggest changes in the course of my career. There was no Facebook when I started. There was no Instagram. There was no easy way for disgruntled citizens to get out in front of people and criticize what cities are doing. Social media seemed to make everyone an expert commentator, and I think we all deal with that. But what's remarkable is that even in the midst of all that complexity and all that increasing challenge, the commitment of these folks hasn't changed. These city officials and other local government officials are still people who care deeply about their communities. They're willing to step into difficult roles, and they want to try to do the right thing. And in almost every case, they're doing that for nothing, no pay at all. And I think organizations like the League and the Pool have had to evolve to match the complexity that cities are dealing with, to provide support that's just as dynamic as the challenges they're facing. And that's why I'm proud of the tagline that we came up with that we're going to be working on for several years called Building for the Future, which is kind of a double entendre about the pool literally building an outstanding new office facility for the pool in TML in Georgetown, but just as important, increasing all the tech and the efforts and the loss prevention things that we do to help cities stay safe.
Bennett Sandlin, he had a quote that was actually PolitiFact a number of years ago. And, it really speaks to exactly what you're talking about. And, I think you and I may be biased on this, but I think the Texas miracle doesn't happen without Texas cities. And when you recognize in the fact that he had PolitiFact and checked was that 74% of Texas's population lives in 4% of its land.
It's crazy.
Which is an amazing thing. And as cities continue to grow and bust at the seams, the demands on infrastructure, the demands on that citizens have for their way of life and all those things, it gets harder, not easier with that.
It does. And I think that's why we've got to help cities have the tools to stay ahead of it. And it's a real challenge. I know that. Doing more with less frequently.
Yep. Let's talk about the people side of this. And I want to acknowledge something here because I think it gets lost in the resume. And what that resume is for you, by the way, is, State Bar of Texas Government Lawyer of the Year, the National Academy of Public Administration recently recognizing you just this year as an elite group, part of an elite group of 250 public service champions nationally. But behind all of that is someone who genuinely is invested in people. I've watched you do it here. You've worked with a lot of staff. You worked with a lot of board members. You've worked with a lot of city officials over the years. What has that meant to you?
Well, I mean, it's meant everything, actually. It's honestly the hardest part about stepping away are the lifelong friends I've made at both organizations, at the pool, being employees, being leadership, being board members, and then the officials I've met at cities all across the state. We're sitting in a conference room right now recording across from my office, and I can see there's a map on the wall. I bought that Texas map in 2002, and I thought it would be fun that every time I helped a city with a legal issue, I put a pin in that city on the map. And that map has literally over 800 pins now. And that's not bad considering there's around 1,200 cities. We've really touched a lot of these cities. The thing about this is, and I guess this is true in most facets of life, really, but this work is built on relationships. It's built on trust. It's built on shared experiences. Commiseration is one of the key focuses of the league and the pool. I think when city officials get together, they network, they learn amazing things from each other, but they really also just support each other by being sharing those same shared experiences. It's humbling to me that we have the support of so many community champions, our mayors, our council members, other types of board members. Like I said earlier, they're all volunteers with day jobs. And the fact that our work can make theirs just a little bit easier every day makes me proud. And whether it's a city official navigating a difficult issue, a board member making a tough decision, or especially, which I see often, is staff going above and beyond to serve members, I've always seen a level of dedication that's really inspiring to me. And I don't want to go on too long, but I think that's what makes our organizations resilient. It's not just systems or policies and step-by-step getting things done. It's people who care. And from what I see, the next crop of staff and the ones that come after that, they just get exponentially better. They tend to build on the work of those who came before and kind of stand on the shoulders of those folks. I actually spoke on behalf of the pool at a recent TML Small Cities Clinic. And I was so proud that I actually hired two of TML's top employees who were there to speak. I hired them long ago. JJ Rocha heads TML's policy function, and Bill Longley is the general counsel over at TML. I hired Bill as a law clerk like 18 years ago and then sought him back out to come work as a TML attorney. JJ was actually our legal assistant for a while, but we saw her potential over there, and she's excelled as well. I'm also so proud of all the TML attorneys who've worked with me over the years. Many are city attorneys now or assistant city attorneys, and others have done great things. I'd really also be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to Susan Horton, Shanna Igo, and Monty Akers. These were the folks who were in charge at TML when I started, and they interviewed me, all three of them, for that first attorney role at TML, and they took a chance on somebody who knew zilch, nothing. Not a zero about municipal law. and probably literally saved my life and gave me the direction I needed by doing so. I'm always nostalgic for TML folks and pool folks that I've known for so long. Even just 5 years at the pool, I've developed that same nostalgia. When I broke the news to my staff that I was leaving yesterday, we literally had some tears. And I've said this before, and I'll stop ranting with this, but I owe you, Jeff, and others, and there's just too many to name. I mentioned a few. I hope folks that weren't mentioned don't get their feelings hurt because there's so many. It'd be impossible to mention who have helped me. But I owe you and those other folks just so much for taking a chance on me, especially at the pool after I departed TML. So I really appreciate that.
Well, that feeling is certainly mutual, Scott. I noticed as you look forward, your personal future looks pretty full between time with your wife, Leslie, and some of the great trips that you guys take. Your Irish doodles, Peaches in Illinois.
The most important thing.
That's right.
Don't forget that.
A Continental Divide dirt bike ride that's still in progress, and presumably a few more summits somewhere. But as you look at the future of these organizations, what do you think is ahead for the pool and the league?
We use the term partnership. That's our one of our main themes, and I think the future is going to demand an even stronger partnership among Texas cities and with the pool and with the league. Like we talked about, the risks that cities are facing are not getting easier or more simple. The cyber threat is huge. Knock on wood, we haven't had an extreme hurricane event recently, but we have had hail. There's always hail in Texas somewhere, especially in the spring, and it can amount to tens and even hundreds of millions of dollars in damages throughout the spring. Politics is an issue that we're all dealing with personally and professionally, you name it. But the strength of this model, the pooled shared approach, is that we face those challenges together. And I feel like that's the same whether you're talking about the functions that the pool serve or the services that the league provides as well. It's just an incredible value statement. And something we've talked about before that you brought up a while back and we've used in several of our presentations is that the pool's contributions that we get each year are increasing for various reasons, but those are the same as insurance premiums. Those are increasing, but we're still for less than the budget of any of the larger cities, for less than the single budget of any of those cities. In fact, for a quarter of the budget of those larger cities, we're providing the coverages and services for over 1,000 cities in Texas. It's just an amazingly efficient innovation and way to do things. AI, it's going to be a big part of that. I know that we're all using that to some extent, and it's going to really exponentially increase, I think, as it helps us figure out how to best serve our members. But like you mentioned at the beginning, I always will continue to believe that face-to-face meetings are the best way to spread the word. Meeting with the folks that we serve and showing them that we're showing up for them is just so important. And I think if we stay grounded in that core idea, that shared purpose, which leads to a collective resilience, I think the future looks great, looks bright.
Partnership truly is the great force multiplier, and we live that out at both the pool and the league every day, and it's so humbling and exciting to see that in action. Last question for you, Scott. What would you like to say to city officials who are listening today?
Yeah, this is an easy one. I would say thank you. I'd say thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thanks for giving me a career that I would have never envisioned having as a kid and never would have dreamt possible as an adult. Thanks for the trust you place in both these organizations. Thanks for the work that every one of you, the listener, does in your communities. It's just so impressive to me and so important. And thank you for taking the time to participate, to be something larger than being just any one city in the state. I truly don't think our tagline is just words. I really do believe that we are stronger together.
Indeed. Scott, thank you. I want to take a moment of privilege here because this isn't just an ordinary sign-off. This is episode 60, I think. the last episode of Local Officials Stronger Together, at least in this format, because it'll be the last one that you'll be host. And that's a lot of laughs for one recording. But here's what I keep coming back to. This podcast never was truly about content delivery. It was about relationships, and you mentioned that. It was about a guy who had spent 25 years earning the trust of Texas city officials, sitting down with them episode after episode and saying, you matter. What you do matters, and you're not alone. That's what 60 episodes of this podcast actually is. And that's also what your career actually is, from the briefs filed at the Supreme Court to the pins on your map on your office, from the law clerk bill that you believed in enough to recruit back to TML, to the legal assistant JJ you saw potential in before she saw it in herself, from the smoke break behind the TML building in 2001 that led to your marriage to Leslie, to the dozens of regional meetings and rubber chicken dinners. It all connects. You gave 25 years to Texas cities, and if the 800 pins, the 200 plus presentations, the A-Grip Outstanding Service Award, the 2026 Public Service Champion designation are any indication, they noticed. And on behalf of the pool, our board, our members, and every city official who's ever felt a little less alone because of this podcast, thank you, Scott. It has been an honor to serve alongside of you.
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it. I can't thank y'all enough.
Thanks, Scott. And we will be right back with your action items for one last time.
All right, I'm back. Thank you, Jeff, for walking me through some of that. It's emotional, but I just can't say enough about how much fun I've had doing this. It's never been work. So as we wrap up today's episode and my time as host, I'll leave you with 3 action items. First, take a minute and reflect on the partnerships that support your city. Whether it's the pool, the league, your COG, or your neighboring communities, those connections matter. They're what makes resilience possible. We learn so much from networking. And like I said, I think just commiserating sometimes helps us get through challenging things as well. Second, continue to invest in prevention or start doing it if you're not doing it now. The more we can do on the front end through training, planning, communication, the better outcomes we'll see on the back end. And in fact, we've done some recent studies that show that compared to similar insurance companies in the private area, the pool spends 2.5 times more on loss prevention efforts. And if you're not taking advantage of those, you really, really need to. It's the folks on our loss prevention teams are just outstanding folks and can help you stay out of trouble before you get there. And then finally, stay engaged. The strength of this model or these models, whether it's the pool or TML, depends on your participation, on cities and city officials showing up, sharing ideas, and supporting one another. That's how we've come this far, and that's how we'll keep going. Thanks for listening to me for these 60 episodes. It's been an absolute blast.
Like I said earlier, there's no way I could thank all the people who have helped me over my career. City officials, TML staff, Risk Pool staff. But I do want to give a particular thank you to the members of the TML Risk Pool's communications team. Janet, Victoria, Thurman, and my partner in crime, Tamara Chafin. They welcomed me into the pool, and we've had a blast over these last 5 years. I wish everybody on the team the best. That's it. Thanks for listening.
To review written materials associated with the presentation or to ask Scott a question, please visit www.tmlirp.org and click on the Stronger Together podcast link. Please remember that the information in this episode is provided for informational purposes only and doesn't constitute legal advice. We recommend that you review the podcast and the accompanying written materials with your attorney prior to taking action.